Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's DC Pro Bono Week event, meeting our clients where they are, serving families east of the river. My name is Jen Massey. I'm the Pro Bono Director at Children's Law Center, and today's event is co-hosted by Children's Law Center and Bedford City. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today. We are going to have a robust conversation regarding medical legal partnerships. You're going to hear about this work as it's modeled at Children's Law Center as well as Bedford City. And it's Pro Bono Week, so we're going to talk about pro bono opportunities to connected to both of our organizations and ways that you can get involved. We've saved some time for questions at the end. Feel free to pop things in the chat. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Kathy Zeisel, a senior supervising attorney at Children's Law Center, to go ahead and talk a little bit about just the background of medical legal partnerships and the clients we're serving east of the Anacostia River.
I think after all this time, I know to unmute. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. And thanks to anybody who's watching the recording. We're so happy to have you here. We used to do this in person, and the virtual space is always a little different, but we are all everybody here today is part of a medical legal partnership. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about what medical legal partnerships are, and then talk to you about our particular medical legal partnerships that Children's Law Center and Bedford City are part of. Okay. So medical legal partnerships are actually born on the medical side out of frustration from the medical team. They were born at Boston Children's Hospital. Up here you have a picture of the founding doctor of the first medical legal partnership at Boston Children's Hospital. They were born of the idea that, in this case, pediatricians kept seeing issues for children in the hospital that were not really medical issues, but they were stopping the children from being healthy. And they felt like lawyers were actually needed to come in and solve these legal issues that were actually a barrier to the child's health. And they brought lawyers into the medical setting to solve these non-medical barriers to health. And what they found was that having lawyers on the treatment team made a really big difference to be able to solve these issues, and that by teaming as doctors and lawyers together, you could get much more effective outcomes for children on both the medical and legal side. And that was the medical legal partnership. There's actually, this is an older map, but there's actually over 400 medical legal partnerships throughout the country. They deal with a huge range of issues. Some are specific populations like pediatric medical legal partnerships. Some deal with specific medical issues such as around cancer or for veterans, or some are law student, medical student partnerships. They all have their own sort of flavor, but they're all fundamentally around that idea that teaming lawyers and doctors together will get better outcomes for patients and clients. By being in the community, it's a really unique experience for us as lawyers. We're used to working in these teams of lawyers, often being around, lots of other lawyers and having clients come to us. In this model, the lawyer is in the medical setting, and we're often the only lawyer there. So the patient or the family comes to the medical appointment, and the lawyer is right there in the community at the trusted setting. We find as lawyers that it makes an enormous difference. I know it's hard to believe that people don't always like lawyers or trust lawyers. Really shocking out there, but we find that by having someone's trusted pediatrician say, hey, you trust us, we're the pediatrician, you're telling this issue that you or your child's having, and it's not something that I as a doctor can do something about, but we have this person who happens to be a lawyer, and they're sitting 2 doors down from where we are right now, and we think that they can help you, and I think that they can help you, I trust them. That actually makes it feel like we're already like 10 meetings in with the client, because we've been vouched for by someone that they trust. And of course, we have to build our own relationship, but we've already been vouched for by someone trusted, and we're right there in their community. So if they need to drop stuff off, we're right there at that doctor's office down the street from them, and they can come and see us in the community. Okay. The other thing that this is some mapping that we want to show you that really talks about the intersection of health and housing, which is one of the areas that both of our medical legal partnerships work in. The first map that you'll see, which is that one with the children's bear on the top and says Impact DC, that one's about asthma. And we're first gonna look at the one on the right that says number of families living in poverty. That's a 2016 map, but that could really be, it's the exact same map as now, about people living in poverty in DC. You'll see DC in its 8 wards, and the wards across the Anacostia River, which provides a physical barrier in DC. That's where we've had historic systemic discrimination, and we've ended up basically with wards 7 and 8 having a very high concentration of families and individuals living in poverty. And you can see that red on the map. You also see wards 4 and 5 having very high concentrations of poverty, but not the same as families and individuals living in poverty are really in wards 7 and 8. When you look at the other map of children going to the emergency room in DC, you see, actually, can you go back 1 second? Sorry. Go back one side, Jen. Yeah. When you look at that map of the ED visits, you see that the kids going to the emergency room are almost identically mapped to poverty in DC. That wards 7 and 8 have that same red, and wards 4 and 5 are also orange, showing a very high rate of going to the emergency room. Wards 1, 2, and 3, where it had very low rates of poverty, also have almost no kids going to the emergency room or being hospitalized for asthma in DC. And then, Jen, if you go to the next map, that's a mapping of Children's Law Center's housing conditions cases. And you'll see a very high concentration also overlapping with both families living in poverty and also where there's a very high rate of asthma. And by working with Children's National and doing this mapping, it illustrated what we anecdotally knew, which was that, hey, it seems like a lot of kids that have asthma have bad housing conditions. And we were able to really work with our evaluation and learning team and children's teams to really look at the data and say, yeah, there is a really big connection here. And that's helped drive some of the policy work that we've done too, to really think about making sure that people are looking at this work through the lens of health and housing and healthy housing, really thinking that that's important. But you can see why this work is important. And the medical legal partnerships allows doctors and lawyers to work together, not just by serving individuals, which is incredibly important work that we do, but also by bringing together that knowledge, like I was just talking about, to change laws and policies, to help individuals and families. We are at both of our organizations collaborate together and separately, but we collaborate together to change a lot of laws and policies in DC around housing, around public benefits, and in many areas. Because of what we see on the ground, we're able to lift that up and work together and work with our clients to make those changes and to solve health harming legal problems that we see both for our clients and systemically in DC. We don't just want to talk about sort of the problems that we see. If you were actually with us at the health centers, in the health center where we used to hold the tours, what you would see is we'd be looking out the window right now and we'd be saying, you'd have walked up to the health center and the first thing you'd see would be the giant big chair at the bottom there. The big chair is if you're not familiar with the area where the health center is, it's at the big chair at the Children's Health Center. And the Bread for the City space is not too far away. And it's sort of the anchor point of a big anchor point in Anacostia. And it's literally a big chair that's a former art display. It's a giant chair, there you see it. And then right next, other picture at the bottom is the Frederick Douglass house. It was Frederick Douglass's house. It's now a museum you can go visit. And above there is the Anacostia River Park that you can go to, which also has a roller skating space inside if you have roller skates and ever want to go roller skating. So all of that is in the area just surrounding the health center that you would have been at in person. And we want to make sure that you are oriented to the space that you would be in right now, because we would have been about to go on the walking tour around the health center that you would see, which at the Children's Health Center, we've been there in that space about 6 years now. They consolidated 2 different centers. And it's like a beautiful, children's renovated and made it into this beautiful space, but you would have walked in and sort of been around this area in the Anacostia River, having probably come over the 11th Street Bridge over MLK to the center right in the parking lot behind the big chair there. Hi, Delissa, that's great. We can connect you with Jen at the end. Who do we serve? Both of our offices serve predominantly Black and Brown individuals and families living in poverty or just above the poverty line in DC. This is a map, again, like we saw before, of where individuals and families living in poverty are in DC. Okay, Jen. About 1 in 5 DC residents are living in poverty. About almost a quarter of DC residents have SNAP, or what we call food stamps, and about 325,000 DC residents are enrolled in Medicaid or DC Alliance health insurance, almost half of DC's population. When we look at the statistics for DC children, it's even a little higher. 25% of DC children live in poverty, and 35% of DC children rely on food stamps as their main source of nutrition. What we know about Ward 7 and 8, and especially Ward 8, is that the poverty rate for children is even higher, where a quarter of children in DC live in poverty. Half of children in Ward 8 are living in poverty. So again, that's really linked to systemic discrimination in DC and how families came to live in Ward 7 and 8. But the result has been that we know that there's a greater concentration of families living in poverty in Ward 8, especially. We know research shows that the average client we see has 3 to 5 civil legal issues facing them at any time, as well as other social issues that they might be managing. And we say this out loud because not that we're going to represent clients in 3 to 5 legal issues at any time, but just a lot of our clients have a lot going on, and it may what they come to us may not be what they end up needing us for, or it may not even be their top priority, even if that's what was spotted by the doctor in referring them. And so these are just some of the areas that we see most impacting our client when they come to us and work with us, and just want to acknowledge that out loud. Okay. I'm going to turn it over. Is Dr. Nash here? I can't see. Sorry, of all the participants in here. I know she's joining any minute. I don't see her yet. Yes. She in the waiting room. Sorry. Tracy, no. Okay. I'm going to talk for a minute. When she's here, she's going to pick up at these slides. These are pictures that Dr. Nash is going to start talking about when she comes on about the health centers that we work at. But I have been at Children's Law Center now. It'll be 14 years in a week. And so I have been working out of what is now Anacostia and what was Good Hope Road that whole time, pretty much until recently. And I'll just say from the legal services side, the quality of care and the partnership there has just been amazing. And the working, you're never sure as a lawyer going in how welcoming people are going to be on the team, but it's been a great experience. And I would say that from the lawyer side, it can be tough to get people, in the job before this, if we needed stuff from a doctor, we'd be calling the offices over and over and over, trying to get somebody to sign something off. Here, you just walk over and you're like, hey, can you sign this? What do you think of this? And you can get a medical opinion or a medical, consult on cases or talk through stuff because they're your partner. And that's just a totally different way of working than we've ever been able to work on cases before. And it really helps us think through and be partners in all of our work. And our pro bono attorneys also benefit from that as well, because we're able to connect them with the pediatricians that referred the case and talk through things as well, and the service providers on the case. So I think that's been a really helpful thing. And I see Dr. Nash has joined us. So I want to introduce Jessica Nash. She's one of our amazing pediatrician partners. She has been a longtime pediatrician we worked with out of the Children's Health Center Anacostia, and she also leads the Healthy Steps, right, program, which helps, she can tell us more about it, but it helps partner with parents of 0 to 5-year-olds. Is that right? I always mix up exactly the criteria.
0 to 3.
0 to 3. Oh, so close. But Dr. Nash, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us more about the partnership from the medical side.
Awesome. I apologize for being late. I was looking for the email for the link, and of course, it's always there. It's never in the email that you thought it was in. as Kathy was saying, I have been, actually I trained at Children's. So I have been at Children's now for over 15 years. And I think I've spent 12 to 13 of them at the Children's Health Center in now what's called Anacostia. Originally, I was at the Good Hope Road and the MLK clinics when we were two separate clinics. And so I have actually, I think the Children's Law Center has pretty much been a part of Children's since that whole time. But, you know, definitely have seen how they help transform families' lives and how we get to interact. And we're so appreciative to have them in our clinic to be a part of services that we can provide for families. I think in particular, because we have so many families with so many social determinants of health, so many families who are, with, the highest health disparities. Oftentimes in clinic, we often are overwhelmed with, well, what do we address first and what can we do? I think having the partnership with Children's Law Center reminds us that, that we don't have to do everything on our own, that we have partnerships that people will help us with some of these needs. And so a lot of what we are referring families for usually have to deal with, like their asthma health, usually their living situations, usually with school services. And I often get encounter from families when I offer to refer them to the Children's Law Center. Families look at me like, oh, I'm not trying to sue anyone. And I'm trying to, reassure them this is not that. This is so that you know what your health rights are and what you have access to and what you deserve. And so a lot of, once we get over that hurdle, families get a lot more comfortable with like, oh, okay, this helps me understand that yes, I can have a home free of rodents, free of insects, because that is my right. If I'm paying rent at this home, or free of mold, and just because the landlord came out once and they said that that's, that's their job, they understand that they have someone who can partner and advocate with them. And that is what I think has been the biggest benefit for us, being pediatricians and being able to refer to the Children's Law Center. I think the other way that the partnership helps really well is what the Law Center brings to us, as in these are the things that we're seeing, like when things come up like this time of year about climate change, what's going to happen when it drops, the temperature drops, and who's required to have, if there's required to have heaters in the home or air conditioning, things that come up, just reminding us of the issues that may come up or the issues with rapid rehousing, who's losing their vouchers, just things that we may not be thinking about, or what is the real things that can happen with the implications of the city making immunizations mandatory and kids being kicked out of school, or what happens if kids don't have their uniforms. And I think just those constant reminders of what families may be facing at this time and what the law actually says and what that means for our families is a great partnership. So it's not one-sided, just what us referring to them, but also the Law Center helping us understand what some of the implication and law issues that our families might be facing at the time. Real-time information based on the time of year or what they're seeing in clinic. We have a lot of other services in the clinic, and sometimes it's hard to figure out, well, is this something that Healthy Steps, which Kathy mentioned that I'm a physician champion for, which is a program that provides like development and psych support for families 0 to 3. And because of our partnerships, if I'm not sure, the other partners know, okay, this may be something, this is in my lane, but I think we should get the Law Center involved, and they can do it on their own by getting the Law Center involved, or they can refer back to us to remind us that, I'm able to do this part. And the last patient, maybe they say the last patient I had, the Law Center helped us with this piece. And so I think this would be a good family to refer. So, definitely, I think it's a great partnership. We're so happy to have them in the center just because there's always a migrant of issues that come up, even related to insurance or healthcare insurance in the district, which is helpful. Anything else, Kathy, you want to jog my mind that I probably should hit on?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think just, I'd already talked about that you guys offer like that all the doctors are, wonderful, and that you guys offer sort of top-notch state of the art care, I think, and you're connected to all the specialty clinics if kids need it and everything. So
yeah, I think, although, I used to call myself, and I think some of this is going to be changing, a community pediatrician. And part of it, I call myself a community pediatrician because I felt like literally my clinic was not in the hospital. I was out in the community. Now, since all the clinics are now in the community, which is a good thing, but I still call myself a community pediatrician because majority of my families do come from Ward 7 and Ward 8. So like literally walking distance or a bus ride or a train stop to our clinic. With that being said, I always felt like, well, people who were at the hospital were lucky because they could just go up a floor, and if they needed to talk to a specialist, or if they needed the social worker or they needed this, it was like right there in-house. Oftentimes we felt like, because we're out in the community, sometimes some of those resources weren't just like that at reach. But literally, we really do have a lot of these resources, and we may not be able to see them every day. But, with the way we refer, they are essentially taking care of our families every day. So our social workers are in-house. We have some family support workers in-house, and our Healthy Steps program is in-house. Children's Law Center still hasn't been able to come back in-house, but I think some of that is a spacing issue. And I don't know if they really have to, right? I think the way we've been functioning, I don't know if it makes sense to be like in person.
Elizabeth is back actually on Wednesdays now.
Oh, so okay. That's the one day I don't go to clinic, so I miss her. So they are in-house. I just not on the day I work. But I feel like now, this whole community pediatrician, I still do have those resources available and at my fingertips, which I think is very helpful.
Thanks so much. That's really helpful, and hopefully it gives people an idea of how from the medical side we work together on things. So thanks, Dr. Nash.
Yes, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know, or they can email me. You can share my email, Kathy. So awesome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nash. And speaking of Elizabeth, we will turn to her now to talk more about the medical legal partnership. And I'll hand it over to you now, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, I think you might be muted.
Story of my life. My name is Elizabeth Boker. I am with Children's Law Center. I am a senior attorney with Healthy Together. I am at the Anacostia Clinic on Wednesdays, as was previously stated. And yeah, I'm there every Wednesday. Next slide, please. Great. So with Children's Law Center, we reach about 1 out of 9 children in DC's poorest neighborhoods each year. We have 6 health clinics on site at different locations around the city. We have served 300,000 families and children since 1996. We have thankfully partnered with more than 500 pro bono lawyers. We really appreciate the support from pro bono lawyers. It makes our organization who we are and able to help as many families as we help. And we also partner with a lot of district agencies and do a lot of policy work to find systemic solutions and citywide solutions that benefit all DC children. Our current medical partners include Children's, Mary Center, and Unity Health. We have lawyers at the ARC, we have lawyers at the main hospital and different programs at the main hospital. We have a lawyer at Mary Center and then at the various Unity Health Centers. So we're really spread out around the city and very fortunate to be able to be in the community. different parts of the city. I'm specifically at Children's Anacostia, which I said, this is the beautiful clinic in Anacostia, right across, as Kathy had mentioned, from the big chair. This is the patient waiting room where we do a lot of pop-up patient trainings if the patient room is full, and we can kind of hit two birds with one stone for families so that they can, while they're waiting to see their doctor, they can also hopefully get little tidbits of legal advice. And yes, it's a beautiful space, very welcoming, very bright and friendly and clean. And it's modern and a lovely space right in the community. Basically, just to do a quick rundown of impact that CLC has had, our medical legal partnership, we've had a lot of direct impact from representation. Just in 2021, we've assisted over 2,037 children and families. We received 866 new referrals, with 65% of those referrals with children who reside in wards 7 and 8. So you can really tell that the major need is in wards 7 and 8. In addition to our direct impact and direct representation and legal services that we provide to families, we also have this really amazing innovative pilot with AmeriHealth insurance provider, and I believe it's the first in the country, and it's super innovative. Our research and evaluation team spent a lot of time collecting data, doing research, and found out that when there was a attorney that was involved from Healthy Together with housing condition cases, that there was a lot less cost to AmeriHealth, a lot less visits to the emergency room, a lot less visits in contact with the medical system. And so we actually have this partnership with them that we actually, if we have a good return or a good outcome on our case, then we get a certain financial incentive from AmeriHealth. And it is a win-win for everybody involved. It's a win-win for our organization to be able to serve more families. It's a win for the family because they're being able to have good outcomes for their family and live in healthy housing. And then it's a good outcome for the insurance, AmeriHealth, because they're able to save money. We also have a systemic impact. We do comprehensive citywide mental health plan for children who are released from the abuse and neglect system and from residentials. We're very involved in mold legislation. We provide testimony, we provide comments. We have advocacy regarding laws impacting children with disabilities. We have a whole policy team actually that really gets in the weeds with all of these issues. And as I said, they provide a lot of testimony and agency oversight hearings. And we also are in constant communication with the courts and the judges to see how we can make systems move smoother for families and the legal system to have to be just more beneficial to all parties. Next slide. So here is our breakdown of cases. We had as you can see, I'll do a little color coding here. The green are housing cases and the blue are special education cases. And then the purple are SSI cases. The light blue is public benefits. The orange are access to healthcare cases, insurance cases, things of that nature. And then the red are just a grab bag of other legal issues. So as you can see from this chart, our major areas of need with Healthy Together are housing, which is the green, and then our special education cases. We've had 866 referrals the past year in 2021. However, prior to the pandemic, we were getting about 1,500 a year, and we are seeing a major increase in referrals since the pandemic restrictions ease and people are comfortable with working with, people as kids go back to school, clearly, and then obviously as people are more comfortable with having people come into their homes to do repairs and inspections and things of that nature that are necessary to find solutions to the housing conditions cases. These are just some pictures of housing conditions that our families all over DC, but especially in Ward 7 and 8, are facing on a daily basis. water damage is a huge concern for our families. Mold is out of control, and a lot of residences, even like private landlords and public housing. I've just seen some really horrific situations that children are forced to live in. Landlords are non-responsive. The city can be really non-responsive. We see a lot of mice. We've seen mice in children's cribs. It's just very, very, really sad to see that families are having to live like this. So anything that, any help or assistance that we can get from pro bono attorneys are really, really, really helpful to the families involved and really make a huge difference in the life of children. Just to touch on special education really quickly as well. We're seeing, obviously with children going back to school, we're seeing a lot of academic regression from distance learning, especially now, and lack of progress, a lot of social issues with reacclimating to school. So families just really, really need support and help right now from lawyers. And we just really appreciate everybody's involvement. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm excited to turn it over now to Molly at Bread for the City to talk about your model of a medical legal partnership. So thanks so much, Molly.
Great, thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Molly. I'm a Skadden Fellow / staff attorney at Bread for the City. And my project has been to sort of formalize a medical legal partnership at Bread. Can you go to the next slide, please? So a little bit about Bread for the City in general. We are a multi-service nonprofit organization serving DC residents living with low income, trying to provide holistic, comprehensive services with dignity and respect. We have over 110 staff and 2 different centers, one in Shaw in Northwest and one in Anacostia in Southeast. And we serve more than 32,000 people per year. Thank you. Okay, so we have a lot of different services at both of the centers. There's a food pantry in each center, clothing room, social services. A lot of these programs have really evolved to work under the pandemic as well as possible. So for example, with the food program, it used to be you would go in and essentially like shop for groceries there, but now there is an option of having groceries delivered. So we've been able to partner with various delivery services to have groceries brought to people's homes when they don't feel safe coming into the office. And then under our social services program, we have a lot of different resources there, rep payee, housing assistance, there's a pre-employment program, and also help applying for things like Social Security disability. Next slide. And then this is what I'll mostly be focusing on today is the medical clinic and legal clinic. So we have 2 medical clinics, 1 in each center, and along with providing primary care, there's also dental, vision, and behavioral health. And then there's the legal clinic. We have staff attorneys who work on family issues, immigration, public benefits, and housing. And then finally, there's also an advocacy and community engagement program that works on building power amongst our clients and folks living with low income in DC and advocating for changes more systemically. So as I said, my project during my time here has been to sort of formalize a medical legal partnership at Bread for the City. This looks really different than children's law centers in a lot of ways. First off, it's all under the same roof, and then it's a much smaller scale since we're just working with 1 medical clinic. And right now I'm the only attorney who actually has a physical presence in the medical clinic. So I work out of both the Northwest and Southeast centers. I'm there in the clinic about 2.5 days a week. And, because they're both under the same roof, there has been a long history of informal referrals, informal collaboration, but there haven't been sort of easy access ways for medical providers to spot legal issues and then make sure those get over to the legal team. And so a big part of my job has been doing some training around making sure that medical providers are aware of what the legal team can help with and what sorts of questions are useful to ask to figure out if one of those things might be going on, and then facilitating those referrals. And there's some really, really simple things, like I have an account in the medical providers medical database that makes it really easy for them to send me a message there, as opposed to having to fill out a Google form or go into the legal area and find someone. And I also collaborate a lot with our social services team. We have a care management team that's able to do things like help someone apply for SNAP or apply for Medicaid. And so if I get a referral that is actually not a legal issue yet, like maybe the person needs to submit an application, I'm able to send that over to them, and then they help with those first steps. And then if it turns into a legal issue later on, they'll send it back to me. So our goal is, as Kathy, talked about in general with MLPs, have this one stop be the entry point for a lot of different services. And I also just want to second what Kathy was saying earlier. I think working with clients who have had Dr. Randy or Dr. Kim as their medical provider, and they really trust those people, it makes it so much easier to build a trusting relationship because they're being referred by someone that they've put a lot of trust in and have known in many cases for a long time. Next slide, please. And so just by, as I said, I'm the only one in the medical clinic right now, but just with the presence of one attorney, we've definitely seen referrals increase dramatically. And it seems like me being there, being a physical reminder that the legal clinic exists and can provide services that can help clients in various ways, has really increased the referral count. So I started just about a year ago, started working in the medical clinics last November. And in just under a year, we've had about 200 medical patients be referred to legal. 71 of those were public benefits referrals, so helping folks get connected with SNAP, Medicaid, Alliance, TANF. 35 were housing conditions, and then 91 were a grab bag of other types of matters that I either refer to other folks within BRED, if it's something like immigration or family law that we can help with, or get them connected to external referrals if it's something that we can't work on in-house. So here's just a quick chart showing referrals by month. As you can see, it really increased quite steadily the first few months that I was present in the clinic, and then leveled off a bit last summer. So I'm curious to see sort of how it goes going forward as we emerge from summer months where things are a little bit slower in general. And then if you could go to the next slide, we do a lot of work on housing conditions cases, but since Elizabeth spoke about that in a little bit more detail, I wanted to just give a quick example of a Medicaid case as well. So a lot of what I do is work with folks who have already applied for public benefits, but for some reason their application is not being approved. And our medical program, so at BRED for the City, they work with folks who are uninsured and provide primary care, but it is very, very difficult to refer patients to specialists when they don't have insurance. And so for a lot of my clients, I've worked with people who are pregnant or who are living with HIV or who have any sort of chronic health condition. That lack of access to specialists really has a giant impact on their health overall. And so legal getting involved can really speed up access to insurance when there are problems. And unfortunately, we see a fair number of clients who've turned in everything they should to the Department of Human Services, but for some reason their case is simply not being put through. I worked with one client who had applied for Medicaid several months before we started working with him. And when we spoke we sometimes were able to work things out informally with DHS, but sometimes when that doesn't work, we file fair hearing requests and go through that process in order to get things worked out. And in that case, DHS said there was just a computer glitch. And so for some reason that was completely outside of my client's control, they were not able to approve his Medicaid. And of course, that computer glitch, that problem is not falling on the government agency, it's falling on my client, who's then not able to access the care that he needs. So legal getting involved can really, speed up working out whatever these problems are. And because our program is so much smaller, right now I refer things to a lot of other attorneys, but I'm the only one physically there. So it makes a huge difference to be able to rely on support from pro bono folks who are willing to take these cases. And it has a huge impact on our clients' health overall. So thank you for your interest. And I will pass it back to Jen to talk about pro bono opportunities.
Thank you so much, Molly. Yes, that is a great segue to talk about how can you get involved with what you're hearing about today. So we're going to share information about pro bono opportunities at both of our organizations. I'll start with an overview slide, though, that really applies to Children's Law Center and Bread for the City alike. The reality is that pro bono really does matter. As you're hearing just that case example that Molly gave, there's a big impact when a lawyer can get involved and navigate whatever the client's issue may be. And ultimately, we're at capacity at both of our organizations and constantly having individuals and families coming in need of help. And we have to rely on volunteers to be able to reach more of the community need. Having a lawyer on a case can make a huge difference regardless of what your practice area may be, what your experience may be. I'll say more about why that is in a moment, but having advocacy skills, having the Esquire behind your name sometimes gets a different response, unfortunately. Our clients are the experts of their lives and are great advocates for themselves, but there is a different response that lawyers often get. And so that can go a long way in achieving an outcome for a client or family in need. And so the reality is that pro bono really does matter. It makes a difference. And without volunteers, many are just going without legal assistance. The cases that we have at Children's Law Center fall into family, health, and education. You're hearing a lot today about the health and education matters that we do because those flow from our medical legal partnership, but we also have a number of family law matters as well. We represent the best interests of children in contested custody cases. We receive referrals directly from DC Superior Court judges handling those matters, where parties are mostly pro se. And then we're also working with third-party caregivers like grandparents and other relatives in those same types of cases to secure legal custody or guardianship or sometimes adoption of children in their care. And so that's the type of practice areas that we need pro bono volunteers. Why does it not matter if you have experience or what your practice area might be? It's because we are providing support. Children's Law Center is screening cases on the front end, so we're thinking about what requires our experience and expertise, because some matters do. And then when we're providing a pro bono attorney a case placement, we're thinking about training materials and resources that a volunteer can access to do the work successfully. And really importantly, we're providing a staff expert mentor. So you're going to have somebody like Kathy or Elizabeth that you can chat with about the case, talk through strategy, say what you're experiencing in the practice, ask questions, brainstorm next steps, and that's available throughout the duration of the case. And I think helps many of our volunteers feel more comfortable taking on something that might be new, you don't have experience with. The on-demand resources that we have available are on our website, so you can go to childrenslawcenter.org. There's a Get Involved button at the top. If you drop down, you'll see Pro Bono. You can click there and learn much more. Part of what you will see on that page is an opportunity to sign up for our listserv. So if you want to check out available cases that we have, we send out a list each week and you'll see a summary. I'm happy to answer questions and talk more about specific cases to find a good fit, but certainly check out training materials, check out those cases, email me, and think about co-counseling if you have colleagues that you may be able to work with. We do have a lot of volunteers who are partnering up with others. It provides a robust experience working with someone else on the ground in the case and distributing the workload as well. So a win-win. And now I'd like to turn it over to Abby to talk about the pro bono opportunities at Bread for the City.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen. I'm Abby. I'm the pro bono coordinator at Bread for the City, and I'm really excited to be here today to share with you guys a little bit more about what kinds of opportunities that we have available for pro bono cases. So as Molly mentioned, we have housing conditions cases available. It's definitely a very high need area. And again, as Molly mentioned, we also do public benefits cases, which are also available for attorneys to take on pro bono, challenging inappropriate denials, inappropriate terminations from these really crucial benefits. And of course, these areas are really important for the health and general well-being of our clients. Also on the housing front, we also do eviction prevention work, trying to keep people in their homes. And this is definitely a really high need area. And, you know, we always would love to get more pro bono involvement in these types of cases. And then we also offer a few other areas. So if you're interested in working with domestic violence survivors, we have a civil protection order practice. That's really great if you kind of want to really focus on a case and really dig into working with a client on a condensed timeline. They usually last only a couple of weeks. You go to the next slide now. And then also on the family law front, we also represent domestic violence survivors in custody and divorce cases, which we are also happy to place those kind of cases pro bono, although they could be a little bit more protracted. It is, you know, the presence of an attorney makes such a huge difference. We also do child support cases under our family law practice. And again, if you're interested in working with survivors of violence, our immigration practice is primarily focused in that area. So we do a lot of humanitarian-based relief, asylum, special immigrant juvenile status cases, things like that, which those can be super interesting to get involved in. And then last but not least, we also have our ID project. So we assist people with accessing identifying documents, birth certificates, things like that, that can be really important. It's something we don't think about a lot, but it can be really important for people to be able to get an apartment, to get a job, things like that. And those are great cases even for legal support staff or non-attorney staff to get involved with in conjunction with an attorney. So we really have something for everyone, I would like to think. And of course, we want to support our pro bono attorneys. So we do provide mentoring from our attorneys for the duration of your case. We provide access to training materials. And if you kind of want to share, you know, if you work at a firm or something like that, and you'd like us to come out and share some more information about Bread for the City, do a training on any of our practice areas and the different types of pro bono cases we offer, we're available to do virtual trainings, in-person trainings, anything like that. So I do hope that you are interested in getting involved. And if you are, just feel free to send me an email. My email is on the slide, and it will also be in the slide deck that you will get after the presentation. So thank you guys so much. We're going to open the floor for questions now if there's anything that you want to ask us.